Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining. I'm Mina Fazal. I'm Professor of Adolescent Psychiatry at the University of Oxford, and I'm joined today by a whole range of people who've been involved in the OxWell survey. And you'll hear from Pauline Foster from Foster and Brown, who run the survey later, but we also got Priyanka Panchal and Jeanette Forward, both of whom are kind of helping run the project either from the Oxford end or just more broadly with our local authority partners. So just to remind you, the OxWell survey is a survey where students directly at school answer a whole range of questions about their mental health and well-being. We feel passionately about it because we think it's so important to learn directly from the young people themselves about a whole range of issues that we are worried about and concerned about, and also about what they're doing well in, as well as their school experience. So they answer questions about their mental health, so specifically depression, anxiety, self-harm questions, but also a whole range of experiences around their friendships, about their exposure to certain risks that we're worried about, including substance misuse, but also just experiences of loneliness, how they're finding the support they're getting at school, and also just kind of what mental health support they want and what they need. So the point of this is just to quickly go through some of the nitty-gritty that if you're a school running the survey, what to do. And we're so grateful that Kate Graham has come to join us because she is a teacher at a school who ran the survey in 2021. And we've asked her to share a little bit about what that's been like. So I'm just going to very quickly just go through the timeline of OxWell 2023 here. So basically, all the schools and colleges will receive a contract confirming their interest in participating, and they have to return that to us here at the University of Oxford. Then you receive a pack from us, and basically the key dates are the 21st of Feb to the 21st of March when the survey opens and closes. And because we really want to hear the voices of young people, we require parents to know about this at least a week in advance in case they would like to opt out. So that's a very important thing. Schools inform parents in a whole range of ways, either send them a special email or embed it in a weekly email if schools run those emails. Once the survey closes, then that's a big piece of work for us to clean the data, start to kind of analyze it, and so that schools can get their own reports and access to the data in June. And we can provide additional support about how to do that. So from our perspective, those are the key dates, and I'm now going to thank and invite Kate to share what it's like as a school to do this.
Hi, so thanks for inviting me. First going to say that I'm going to share my experience of running it, but it was sort of, it was in the height of COVID. So everything is in sort of that frame, as it were. So yeah, best laid plans, because we were working in bubbles and sending anyone who's in 2 meters of contact with anyone else at home. So this, I'm well aware that this time will be quite different. But reflecting on how I approached it last time, I sort of approached it in 2 different ways, looking at the logistical organization and then the pastoral organization in terms of the support beforehand, during, and afterwards for both students and staff, really. So in terms of the logistical, obviously, the first starting point is creating a timetable. And what I found worked really well is having it all done by the same faculty staff. Now, I realize every school is going to be different in terms of their circumstances, but for us, rather than going down, a form time or PSHE route, one that's very limited time, often during the week, we actually used our English department, who has a lot of contact time, and we're really supportive. And we're willing to give up a lesson per class in order to run the survey. And so we created a timetable based on the availability of our laptops. We have very limited computer rooms, as it were. So we went down we have lots of laptop trolleys. And so liaising with the IT staff to get that timetable in place. And then using a department like English, you're also making sure that every student gets an opportunity to take the survey, as opposed to, when you get to option subjects at GCSE. And then sixth form, we did do differently, and we did that via forms because, of course, we're only taking 3. It was quite different. So the reason we went down the route of the English is because I could have consistency of delivery. And so I had a meeting with the English department, going over the survey, the nature of the questions, the time frame for it, and then we get that consistency of delivery, which I found helpful, and of course helpful for the staff. Once they were delivering it over and over again, they developed in confidence with that as well. Really important, as you'll know, is to test the links that are sent to you, and I would test those every day of the survey as well, because there's always, I am not technical, but there's always something that worked yesterday and then doesn't work the next day. And so testing those links, and again, really meeting with that delivery team, which were for us, the English teachers, was really key to the delivery. So as I said, they understood the nature of the questions, the nature of the impact on the students, and then also telling them, what to do if they notice that a student would become distressed as well. Who to contact. For us, we have measures in place anyway in terms of contacting the pastoral staff if there's any need for that as well. Once we had that timetable agreed, we sent out 2 weeks ahead of time the information to the staff, so that they, to the parents rather, so that they could opt out. And then I'll come to a little bit later what we did with that opt-out information. But at the same time that we informed parents, we also, I went to assemblies for all the different year groups so that the students would have high profile, so that the students would understand what they would be walking into, so that it wasn't just going into the classroom and suddenly they would have the survey in front of them. They understood the nature of the survey. We used, I think you sent out some PowerPoints and information for the students. So we shared that with them and then answered any questions that they had around that as well. So parents were finding out about it at the same time as the students. In terms of that pastoral organization side of things I was talking about, in addition to meeting with the English staff who were going to deliver, I also met with the pastoral and safeguarding staff within the school, our mental health first aider, excuse me. And it depends again on what every school will have a different pastoral structure, but we have non-teaching pastoral staff linked to every year group, so who are all safeguarding trained, mental health first leads. So we met with them as well and went through the questions in more detail so that they could understand what was, the questions that were going to be asked, the potential impact on individuals as well, and that they would be on hand to be contacted on the days of the survey. The timetable, once it was put in place, was shared with all the staff so that all staff knew which year groups, which classes in each year group were going to be taking the survey on each day, so that they could cross-reference with what we call our Handle with Care list. That goes out, so which just briefly shares any concerns that a student might be dealing with at any given time, so that if something were to arise, they would have that information to hand as well. We made sure it had that high profile as well on our staff bulletin. So again, that all staff knew what was taking place when. And then finally, as I said before, we tried to really plan ahead of time for those students who opted out, so that one, there wasn't any pressure on the teacher on the day when they would get the list, and say, oh, what do I do with this student who can't take it? We made plans ahead of time. Now, to be fair, we had very, very few parents who opted out of the survey. But we made sure that students were told ahead of time just to get their mark and then go to another place where, depending on their year group, their year head had put other work in place for them, depending on what their year group was at that time. And I'm really sorry that was so quick, and but that was my experience. I expected to be quite different, but again, it'll be quite different because we're not in COVID anymore. But I hope that was sort of helpful, Mina.
Super, thank you so much. So what Pauline is now going to do is just share just experience from hundreds of schools that she's worked with, her top 5 tips, hopefully, or maybe more, who knows, and then we'll open it up to questions. So thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Mina, and thank you, Kate. I think you've covered most of my tips in your presentation, so that's excellent. That's a good answer. So these are my top tips. First of all, as Kate was saying, planning is crucial. So look at when each year is going to do the survey. You'll need a full lesson period to do this. computer access is required. So in secondary settings, this means booking computer suites or whatever you're doing, and booking them early for your settings. For primary schools, this means making sure that you've got enough laptops, etc., available that are working for the class. Sixth forms and FE can complete OxWell in their study periods or as a homework assignment, so they're a bit easier. Each pupil and student we've shown a briefing video before they do the survey. We recommend that they're informed about the survey, as Kate was saying, beforehand, just to allow them time to ask questions. So this could be done in tutorial time or registration, whenever. Staff, if your staff could please use the test login to familiarise themselves with the themes and the questions, so that students, so that they can inform students properly. We'll give lots of guidance on that. One of the feedback issues we've had from pupils and students with focus groups who've done the survey is that they're concerned about confidentiality. So they need to understand that their responses are confidential. We don't collect anything that can identify them, such as names or emails. We're looking for average data over large groups. We're not looking at individual data for this, and no one in the school will be able to identify them when the data come out. It'll be averaged. I would rather that students miss the question if they don't wish to answer, rather than make something up or invent something. So some of the questions are personal and some of them may be upsetting for some people. So if they don't wish to answer, they don't need to. They just need to move on to the next questions. The pupils should be signposted to an appropriate adult in school they can talk to if any of the issues raised need to be discussed. Please, as Kate was saying, check your school logins, certainly a few days before the survey starts, and then periodically through the survey. I think that's a very good tip Kate gave, to check every morning. If you have any problems at all, then contact me. My contact details and phone number will be in your pack. And you can ask us any questions. Just make sure that you can that the pupils' machines can access the survey website. We sometimes get some blocking firewalls and things in place that are higher than for staff machines and for student machines and staff machines. So it's important that you check it on a student's machine. If you have a computer suite, then there is a way that the pupils can all be logged in at the same time. If you contact us, then we can send you a link for that to make that process easier. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So hopefully that's helpful to those of you that are trying to plan it. Pauline, I just can you just do one last comment on what feedback you've had from the hundreds of schools that have done it, about whether students get distressed after, or what they need to be prepared for?
So sorry, but what was the, I missed the
they
last...
need to have any preparations for students afterwards, like what feedback have you heard regarding that?
I think just prepare them that the survey is coming, and the nature and content of some of the questions, so what the topics that are going to be covered. For primary pupils, there are some tricky questions around how much exercise they do over the week, and it might be worth preparing them for that. They could calculate that in a lesson beforehand so that they have the answer available. Secondary pupils don't have so much problem with this, obviously, but I think it's only fair to warn them about some of the nature of it. Yes, so some of the problems, as I mentioned, the things that students were worried about was confidentiality was the main one. Hopefully they would be reassured by the video beforehand, and also we put prompts throughout the survey that their answers are confidential. But they need to be aware why we are doing this work.
Yeah.
And
So in the packs we send schools, we'll send information on resources as well. I do think it is important because a lot of schools, especially the first time they're doing it, are worried about some of the questions about self-harm, about their mood. But our experience has been we've had very little negative response to that. If anything, schools have told us that what it has done is helped some young people then go and speak to staff whom staff were unaware of, and they've been able to help identify resources in that way. So I think that's an important thing just to be aware of, that it seems to be more of an opportunity to identify than something that is likely to be difficult for students.
yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just formally end the recording. I'm just going to press.
Okay, so last year we did it for, as far as I can remember, it was the whole school. It was year after year, done in the assemblies in terms of the videos as well, in terms of what they would be expected to do, what the kind of rough ideas of the topics of the questions, and it was pretty smooth. It worked okay. It did bring some pupils out to kind of come forward for support, which was great. So obviously a lot that we already knew about anyway, potentially would be, I'll say triggering, but they were already on our radar anyway in terms of safeguarding concerns. But it was yeah, straightforward. But it wasn't me that did all the logistics, and the member of staff who did it is no longer with us. So it might be a steeper learning curve for a couple of us this year to kind of go through that process again.
But is there anything you'll add in addition, knowing what you know from the last time?
Yeah, it kind of, I think the things that Kate's already said is that kind of checking all the links. The biggest problem seems to be the ICT side of things rather than the questions themselves. There's also some difficulties with some of the groups, younger ages or SEN, in terms of the language in the questions. So that's kind of constantly, what does this mean, or what's that word? Or so again, like Kate said, we didn't do it with particular departments. It was a set of staff who were SLT that did a lot of the sessions with myself or the members of the wellbeing team, as opposed to the department. So we were expecting certain questions to be problematic, or the language to be, for the younger ones, maybe didn't quite pick up on it or what they were asking, particularly for the SEN as well. So there's just little things like that. There was no major things. It's just kind of, I think the more you do it, and particularly if you've got the same teams or the same people, it will be a little bit smoother year upon year in terms of delivery.
Yeah, thank you. And we have tried to simplify. We have changed the questions a bit this year. We have tried to simplify some of the ones that we knew were most commonly difficult, and we've added new ones. But I do think it is important that it is less accessible to those that have, you know, a lot of the language difficulties. So yeah, we're sorry about that.
And I just pick up, sorry, Mina.
There's one other thing that we want to say is that for the non-attenders at school, so some schools obviously have young people who might not be attending for a whole range of reasons, and we are setting up a special survey so they can access it from home as well. Sorry, Pauline.
I'm sorry about that. Just picking up on Neil's point about the ICT possible issues, please don't let them struggle. Contact us. We've got IT department here, and Elaine, who wrote the program, so we've got a lot of experience, and we can help with that.
I don't think it's your end. I think it's generally our end. So it's
yes, I know, but we've seen most things. So Elaine's got a lot of tips, and she can talk techie to other techies, and
it's more the things like my keyboard doesn't work, or my mouse is broken, or
yeah, we have trouble with that.
You're halfway through the session.
Human error.
It does work well on iPads. It'll even work on phones, but I don't recommend that. It's really tedious on the phone, but it works well on iPads.
Are there any other questions?